Next up, we have a fulsome discussion called Multiculturalism in the Current Context with Cecilia Lai from Radio 1 580 AM as the host and moderator of 5 panelists joining her. I'm going to hand over the mic over to you now, Cecilia.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful panel discussion that is part of the very exciting Mid-Autumn Moon Festival, one of only 3 featured events that form Alberta Culture Days 2020. My name is Cecilia, and I'm one of the new hosts at the Edmonton's newest multicultural broadcaster, My Radio 580 AM. I will be hosting one of the Chinese language program Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we are very excited to announce that My Radio 580 AM will officially launch on September the 28th, that's Monday at 7 a.m. My Radio 580 is a brand new locally owned and locally managed multicultural station, which means everyone involved with the station lives and works in our Edmonton community. The programming consists of more than 17 different languages, including South Asian, Chinese, Filipino, and Arabic languages, among others. I'm sure you can't wait for our launching on September 28th at 7 a.m. So stay tuned in, My Radio 580 AM. It is my pleasure to host and moderate this section called Multiculturalism in the Current Context. And with such an excellent group of panel speakers, thank you for your willingness to participate in this panel session. The common response to COVID-19 has been physically distancing and other measures such as wearing masks, frequent hand washing, etc., to contain the spread of the disease. It actually requires individuals, organizations, and countries to take necessary steps to cope. During these uncertain times, how have multiculturalism and multicultural organizations fared? How have you and your organization been challenged by the current situation? And what creative, individual, organizational, and community-led practices have emerged in response to? Here, I have 5 speakers, and each speaker has about 6 minutes to speak. And after everyone has spoken, speakers has 1 to 2 minutes to share on what they have heard from other speakers. The first speaker is Swelana Pavelanco. She arrived with her husband in Edmonton, the city they now call home, from Novorossiysk, Siberia, just over 13 years ago. In 2015, Avenue magazine named Swelana as one of the Edmonton's top 40 under 40 for her work helping seniors of all nationalities and faiths live fuller and richer, while also bridging the gap between generations. Swelana has been the executive director of the Jewish Senior Citizen Center for more than 10 years, where she works to promote the multicultural senior community and to build intergenerational connections. Swelana is also the president of the International Leadership Center, Twitter Inc., that provides consulting and training services in the areas of leadership, management, and projects development. Swelana holds an MA in leadership and PhD in philosophy and sociology. Let's welcome Swelana.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this great pleasure and honor to be with you today and discuss the important topic of multiculturalism and diversity in a modern world. And I'm very proud of myself because I did created a piece of lantern during this presentation, and I'm sure I can assemble the whole piece together soon. And what we observed today, first of all, the preparation of honey cakes and celebration of Rosh Hashanah or New Year in a Jewish tradition, and a beautiful creation of lanterns in the Chinese traditions, it definitely demonstrates us a one part of phenomena which we called multiculturalism. But I was informed that today we have people join us of a different age and different generation and a very multicultural crowd. So I would like to start with a brief overview of what is multiculturalism and how this concept is seen in the world today. So if we will talk about multiculturalism as a phenomena, as an idea, as a concept, it's a quite young term which started to be used in 1960s due to increased level of immigration to Canada and different world cultures. And Canadian government started to discuss this concept, and by 70s, Canadian government adopted the idea of multiculturalism, so allowed to have a variety of ethnocultural group, language group, one under the same roof of Canada as a state. And today, the concept is continued to develop. We can't say that like we have one strongly developed concept which adapted by everybody in the world and it works for everybody. Unfortunately not. And I think that what you're observing today, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in other countries of the world, you can see that unfortunately in Europe, many politicians declared the complete collapse of the idea of multiculturalism. And I think that we can all be invited to discuss why it's happened and what's the difference between European multiculturalism and Canadian multiculturalism. So first of all, I think that you're all aware that when states is formed, there are different options for formation of the state. And if we will take Europe and European country, majority of these countries, they were formed based on national identity. So like if we're talking about France, majority of people who used to live in France was French people who were born there. If we will talk about Britain, it's the same situation. But when we are talking about Canada, Canada originally is a country of immigrants, the country of people who were coming from all over the world to this continent with a wish to build their successful future. So that is why when we are talking about multiculturalism in Canada and in Europe, it's absolutely two different ideas and two different concepts. I'm sure you all heard about idea of melting pot. So idea of melting pot, it's idea of multiculturalism in United States, when United States is proclaiming that there is an American nation and everybody who is coming to America supposed to adapt and assimilate to the mainstream culture. If we are talking about Canada, it's a little bit different approach. When we are talking about Canada, we are not talking about melting pots. We're rather talking about salad. There are a lot of different ingredients with their specific unique tastes, and they all mix together in one dish. And how good this dish is depend how well these ingredients are blending together. So when we are talking about the idea of multiculturalism in Canada, we also can't talk about this idea, which is absolutely equally understood by the whole part of Canada. We should remember that our country is a very young country. And even though we celebrated recently 150th anniversary, a few years ago, we still have remember that the formation of the state of Canada were developing very slowly. And the last territory which we adopt into the Canadian state, it was 1999. So we are very young. That is why, when we are talking about multiculturalism in Canada, we have to remember that besides absence of one nation, we also have quite a number of factors which we have to consider in order to successfully develop the politics of multiculturalism and accept everybody in a Canadian family. So first of all, we have a wonderful part of our society is indigenous people. But when we are talking about indigenous people, their idea of multiculturalism is totally different. They would like to have a parallel society with a self-government structure, and their idea of multiculturalism and the mainstream idea of multiculturalism have to be compared and mature, developed in the one concept. Another thing, if we are talking, for example, about Quebec, Quebec is another thing which saying that we have their own idea of multiculturalism, and we have our own idea of who we are and how we want to be called. So that is why when we are talking about multiculturalism in Canada, we should define for ourselves. Are we talking about multiculturalism on a federal level? Are we talking about multiculturalism on a provincial level? Or we are talking about municipalities? I must say that, like, you know, we are very lucky being in Alberta, because according to the majority of Statistic Canada polls, Alberta is the most accepting province. So people in Alberta are very welcoming and very genuine towards the immigration process and support to new Canadians, compared with the rest of Canada. So we are really having a wonderful background, you know, for the further development of these wonderful ideas. Also, when we are talking about multiculturalism, an idea of blending together, we should remember that when we are talking about Canadian identity, who we are as Canadian, the important part of our identity also is language. And you have to remember that Canada is officially bilingual country. So we have French and English as the mainstream languages, plus we have a majority of an enormous amount of different languages which people cherish and continue to use in a day-to-day routine with their families and friends. Again, when we are talking about multiculturalism and languages, language is a glue which unites the nation. So for us, it's very important to understand, even though we cherish our own languages, English language or French language, depends on the part where you're living, is influencing your way of thinking and influencing your way of reality perception. When we are talking about current situation with multiculturalism, I'm sure you all were witnesses of different events when Canadians experience anxiety regarding our borders with United States, or like other issues when we had a race of anti-immigrant and anti-multiculturalism movements in Canada. And it's not something new for 2020. You know, if we will take a statistical information, we will see that these trends are going up and down for the whole history of formation and development of our country. So that is why, you know, like, I think we have to think what will be the main values and main goals for us as a Canadian nations in order to be united by these goals and by these values. And I think that today we all can talk about it and discuss it, because our Canadian identity is things which build our country and holds our country together.
Thanks, Svetlana. Thank you, Svetlana, for your insights. I'm really interested about the Jewish Senior Citizen Center. However, as the time runs out a little bit, so I'll leave it at the end of the panel. So you will explain to us, talking more about this senior center. So the coming up next is Frankline Agbor. Frankline is a community builder with the conviction of a man with a mission, combined with the success of sustained community projects. In the world where media and journalism are struggling to make ends meet, Diversity Magazine has developed a flourishing business in both Edmonton and Calgary. So Frankline, would you please take over the airtime?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay. So it's a pleasure to be part of this and sharing some of the work we've been doing in multicultural communities across Alberta. So we have lots of different things going on in multiculturalism, from Diversity Magazine, from Diversity Awards. We have an African festival called Africaniva, which Of course, that's where I'm going to be talking more about how have these events and festivals survived and adapted to the changing climate of COVID-19. So the first problem is that due to social distance restrictions, we all have to, unfortunately, not come together as we always prefer to do. We have to stay in at least 2 feet apart. And in most cases, we have to do these festivals or these events online. So the one that we did, which was the Africaniva Festival in Edmonton, we make it a must to still host the events, even though that would not be face-to-face as always the case, but we have to do it online, bringing in some expertise to stream the video online so more people can watch. So we took the advantage of reaching out a lot more people because it's online. So we did it Edmonton and Calgary because with Edmonton and Calgary now you can reach out more people. Before it was traditionally just in Edmonton and people have to come to one place. So we took the advantage of COVID, we made it an advantage and stream it online and engage and involve people in Edmonton and in Calgary. The other thing that happened in these situations is that we have to try to get people's attention to watch. We have to get people's attention to engage in the events. We have to try to get people to be interested in what is happening. So there was lots of promo online before the event. So the challenge moved from putting on a wonderful festival to getting attention and getting interest. So it changed from a festival to more like a marketing project because it's all about how do you get people interested and involved? How do you get everybody connected to this? So I would say for so far from what I've observed from other events and other organizations, most festivals like us have been able to adapt to the changing times and like us taking advantage of COVID to expand the festival and hopefully see how it goes for next year. Most of the event planners and event organizers have become they're already people who know how to get attention and get their stuff out there and get their events and festival out there. So most of them have been really good at getting that word out there and bringing people together still, despite the challenges of marketing and equipment and new skill sets that they might not have. So as time goes, I think what we are going to see is that we're going to see people do more online stuff because unfortunately, COVID is not going away. We are going to see more online stuff. We are going to see more people do stuff that traditionally they didn't do, but still hold on to their culture or their events or their arts or whatever they are planning to do. And I'm sure there will be a vaccine soon for COVID, and God willing, and everything start taking shape, and maybe a better move to the third level of implementation for the economic recovery plan. Then we hope to see more people come together, and next year we are positive and optimistic that everything will go back to normal. But the lessons that have been learned in doing a lot of the online events and festivals will be used now to engage a lot more people online and connect a two kind of festival where you have a version of it face-to-face and another version of it online. That's what I think will be happening going forward. And I hope to see that as it goes. So I'll be sticking around and very happy to listen to what other presenters have to say. And of course, very happy to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Franklin. What a good idea. I totally agree with what you said. We are right now living on the online world. Okay, coming up next is Satya Brata Das. Satya is a seasonal strategist, author, board director, and policy guru. He's a frequent commentator and public speaker in both French and English, which I can't speak French, in media and on stage. Satya's volunteer work is deeply informed with a lifelong commitment to human rights as a way of life and the principles of human dignity espoused by M.K. Gandhi. Satya's book spans some of the most compelling challenges of our times, offering intimate vignette and deep exploration of the points where society, culture, economy, and environment come together. His latest book is a journey towards a different kind of future for all who share the planet. Here comes Satya.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to be gathered with all of you, and I'm Iskochiwaskahikan, which was the name of the place that is now called Edmonton, until the colonial era established a country called Canada 153 years ago. Amisquachihuascahican is one of the oldest continuously settled places on Earth. We humans have lived here for 11,000 years, and the settler history of Amisquachihuascahican is less than 300 years old. So in a sense, when we talk about multiculturalism in the current pandemic, we're talking about a very long tradition of human settlement and human societal interaction that has now evolved to the stage where we live together, not in separate silos, not in cultural segregation, but together, sharing, building together a country called Canada on Canadian values that were set out in the Constitution of 1982. That said, I've noticed some quite interesting things in our community and in the larger Canadian community as we respond to the pandemic. We have, on a very superficial level, an alarming tendency by some of the more intolerant among us to blame Canadians of evident Chinese ethnicity for the actions of the government of China. This is something that needs to be denounced and deplored. And I have been very heartened to see that in public instances, in public demonstrations, where things that may or may not have arisen out of the government of China's actions, when citizens in Edmonton try to blame or cast aspersions at fellow Edmontonians whose ancestry makes them in one of the oldest cultures of the world, that people outside of those cultures have come to the defense. What has really heartened me is this collective and mutual solidarity of standing together, standing with one another, and standing shoulder to shoulder to quell any forces of intolerance, hatred, or bigotry. On the other hand, this is not at all unexpected. One of the things that the COVID pandemic has done is it has put the brakes on how the world sees itself, on the normal framework of everyday life, and very much in a sense forced us to re-examine who we are, how we live, and how we engage. Within that context, it is very interesting to note a sense of mutual purpose and solidarity that was always there below the surface in this country, which has really started to take root ever since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission invited us to reconnect with our Indigenous heritage and to realize Indigenous heritage as the foundation of who we are, that this solidarity has been amplified and magnified during COVID. I'm part of so many organizations and online forums where, as we are today, people of different backgrounds and origins are coming together for common purpose. And the common purpose is almost universally a world that is oriented toward a culture of peace, toward a culture of human dignity, toward a foundation in which compassion and outreach and the validation of the dignity of the other are paramount and central to this demonstration of identity. I believe that as we emerge from COVID, if we ever emerge from COVID, the sense of the world being one, the sense that biologically there is no difference between us, that racism isn't about biology, it's an ideology. It's an ideology tied to imperial structures and expansions so groups of humans could dominate others. We have finally moved beyond the presence of racism as a corrosive current within our society to talking about overcoming systemic racism. We have not had anything as dramatic as the police killings of minority populations in the United States, which sparked such widespread civil protests. But yet, in our own way, in response to that, we have found a sense of shared belonging and a determination that that none of us are free until all of us are free. In this sense, I think that having a festival such as we're having now, and especially your kindness in inviting outside voices from your community to join and mingle and participate, is an essential part of building this kind of solidarity and foundation. In my travels in China, I was always struck by the huge differences culturally, linguistically, and socially between and among regions. And I think that the community as represented here of many different origins within the greater Chinese diaspora is one of the rich and vibrant things that really keeps Edmonton at the forefront of being a place, as a Misquachihuascahican has been for 11,000 years, a place where cultures mingle and share. So with those thoughts, I thank you very much for your presence. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Satya. I really like one sentence what you say. We are not free until all of us are free. That means right now is a situation we work together. You know, we pay concern to each other, you know, like wearing masks. Not only me wearing masks, everybody wearing masks, okay? So I believe every one of you want more insights from further speakers. So right now, I would like to invite Joey Jalal. And Joey arrived in Canada as a child in a family of United Nations sponsored Kurdish refugees from Iraq, and is currently working as a cultural broker with the Multicultural Health Broker Cooperative in Edmonton, a not-for-profit organization that started 25 years ago to support Edmonton's newcomers. The organization's goal is to enhance the health and well-being of families and foster their efforts at building community so they could thrive and actively contribute their talents and cultures. Let's see what Joey's idea is. Joey.
Hello, thank you all for having me. Before I begin, I would also like to thank those who have organized the opportunity for us to be together this afternoon. I would also like to personally acknowledge that I benefit from being on traditional territories of Treaty 6 First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. I feel so privileged to be able to hear about multiculturalism from such a vast array of voices and so many unique and important perspectives. I'd like to first expand on the very kind introduction I was just given and share a little bit about myself. So my name is Joey, or my traditional Kurdish name, Jwamer Jalal. And in 1997, at the age of 6, I moved to Canada through a United Nations sponsorship with my family. My father applied for sponsorship as an asylum seeker in Turkey, having fled our native land in Kurdistan, northern Iraq, due to persecution from Saddam Hussein's Iraqi regime. This persecution was due to his writing, as my dad was a poet who routinely wrote about democracy, freedom, and self-determination of persecuted peoples, all topics strictly prohibited by the harsh censorship of the Iraqi regime, who also sought to outlaw all Kurdish writing or cultural expression of minority groups. I hope during my presentation I can make the case for multiculturalism as an additive commodity to our society, to focus on its power not only as a unifying force, but also as a tool of improvement and self-discovery during times of strife, like, for example, a worldwide pandemic. A few days after I was asked to participate in the panel, I was also asked by my father to help him translate a few remaining poems he had edited out of upcoming collection to be published by the university press. We sat down together and went through each line of each poem, first in Kurdish, and then with great care and under his guidance, I would gradually translate the works into English. By the end of the experience, I felt such a deep and rich connection to my father, but beyond that, and through his work, I felt a closeness to my cultural identity. COVID-19 has been difficult on many, and I am no exception, but diving into my heritage through his work was uniquely nourishing for my soul. Just under 20 years ago, Dr. Tara Yoso from the Graduate School of Education at the University of California discussed in academic terms what I believe I experienced with my father. With a time limit in mind, I'll briefly summarize her work as the study of inherent cultural wealth that cultural minority students would leverage to bolster their resiliency in the competitive schooling environment. Simply put, she studied and interviewed graduate students who are typically first-generation immigrants that did not come from privileged backgrounds. And she found that although many of these students did not have the same financial security as their peers, they brought with them talents, strengths, and experiences to their college environment that were fostered by their relationship to their families. Their parents, grandparents, sometimes aunts and uncles, all these relationships arm them with tools Yoso described as everything from, but not limited to, linguistic capital, the ability to speak more than one language, to aspirational capital, which is the ability to maintain hopes and dreams for their future in the face of real or perceived barriers. These tools were essential in their ability to traverse the university landscape, but also added diversity of thought to their environments that was crucial not only for their own learning, but the learning of their peers. I think it's our hope at MCHB that we would take Dr. Yoso's learning even a bit further. In such an uncertain time, we are all looking for answers for a plethora of questions that lay ahead. Perhaps these questions are personal, perhaps they're on a larger scale, but rather than looking strictly towards modern or conventional Western answers alone, which certainly have their strengths, we should also look toward our cultural wealth in ourselves, the writings, songs, stories, poems of our ancestors, our family, the voices of those that came before us. But beyond even this, we should look towards each other's stories, each other's songs and dances. And through this process of sharing, we can gift each other the unique cultural capital that is embedded within all of us naturally. So often we look at multiculturalism as a strength of the Canadian way of being, but more often than ever, this amounts to performative multiculturalism, tolerating the cultures of one another rather than embracing, exploring, sharing, and learning. Rather than perpetuating this performative strength, we should encourage the true potential of multiculturalism as a legitimate and often overlooked tool for growth and healing. Rather than looking at cultural customs of others as simple mythology of their peoples, we should seek out learnings that we may be able to apply into our own lives to strengthen our own resilience. And perhaps there are answers for the internal questions where we least expect them. Recently, I've been fortunate enough to come across Taoist meditation. And although it hasn't been easy slowing down my breathing, pursuing clarity, it has already strengthened my ability to cope with stress and has propelled me on a journey to further self-discovery. This is the power of multiculturalism. A life, a culture, presumably incredibly distant from Taoism, being enriched by its teachings. An opportunity I would have never had. I consider myself incredibly grateful to be able to share with you all my cultural wealth, and even more grateful at the prospect of exploring yours. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what? You talk about multiculturalism, and I really, really encourage, like, with the agreement that multiculturalism should be encouraged, because Canada is built up of, different cultures, so which is really, really important. And coming up next, I would like to invite Beryl Scott. Beryl was born in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Beryl Scott moved to the UK, where she was trained as a registered nurse and midwife. After moving to Canada in 1976, she worked as a nurse in Hamilton, Ontario, and Edmonton. Since retiring, Beryl continues to be active in nursing and union organizations. In all her professional and volunteer activities, Beryl has been a mentor for others and a champion for human rights. Beryl is a strong, caring lady who has never been a spectator in any aspect of her life. She is passionate about creating an inclusive society free of racism through systematic changes and intercultural understanding. Beryl reaches out to individuals from diverse communities, involving them in activities that benefit society in order to create a better life for all. She is currently the president of the Canadian Multicultural Education Foundation. Here comes a pretty lady.
First of all, I'd like to just say that for me, I would like to say, out of many, one people. And that is the motto of my homeland. I also don't really always say that I'm hyphenated Canadian. I'm a Jamaican, I'm a Canadian, and I'm British. So there's where I come from in talking about how I feel about what is going on right now with multiculturalism in Edmonton and throughout all of Canada. I feel that we need to reach out to people, and that's what I try to do. And in reaching out, it might not always be welcome, but I still continue to do this. And I notice as I go around, since this COVID has started here in Edmonton, and I've been very good in staying home and not going out too much, but still keeping in touch by phone. I reached a stage where I had to step up in a restaurant, sorry, not a restaurant, in a supermarket, where I felt that our people was saying things to who they thought were not from Canada, but from China. And they were being extremely rude. And I stepped in and I made some comments by saying, this is wrong. You're not showing what Canadians are like. This is not us, please change. Now that person didn't change too much. It was not done the way I thought that she would have done it, but the store did take action on it. And then I think about the work that I do with the community. This is how I was brought up, was to share, was to help. And then I remembered not living in Jamaica, but living in England and having a parent that was not well. And so I relied on people to take care of her and on the rest of the family to go into Jamaica to help. So now I am repaying all of that to people here in Edmonton. I can tell you that today I'm seeing and reaping the closeness and the multiculturalism of two persons that I have met through my work in the community. And one was a speaker just now that was Frankline Agbor. He has been there for me when I've not been feeling well throughout this whole season of what's been happening. And he's right, we're not sure when this is ever going to stop. And he reached out to me. And today I'm here at his office doing my talking because my computer is not working. So we've arranged to do everything here. And I can say he has shown me what multiculturalism is about. He has also shown me by being in the community what we need to do. Some of the other speakers I do know, and Satya was somebody that I respect a lot because of the way he has shown his feelings for working with multiculturalism and helping each person that comes around. I think for us here in Edmonton, when I got here, I thought they had seen enough of our faces around so they were going to be able to deal with it, but they really weren't able to. And I found out one thing that was really hard for me was when I finally decided to become a Canadian citizen and I sent in my information, that I noticed that when I had come into the country in 1976, that instead of putting me down as a nurse, they put me down as a nursing attendant. At that time, I already had everything that I needed, which was a registered nurse, a state certified midwife, as well as working with health visiting work. And I was really quite upset, so I got that changed by writing to whoever I had to write to say, this is wrong. And I think for us today, we need, when I think about what's happening down south, and I see what is happening there, I was eager to say, this is not what Canada is about. We need to change it. And I am working towards that and will continue to work. I have spent some time within the Chinese community, and I hope that they understand that when I come, I might not speak their language, but I'm there to help and to do whatever that needs to be done. And also, we need to say to others, this is Canada. This is home to people who came here, and we need to accept and respect our Indigenous persons. And that's where the problem lies, is in that people sort of marginalize who they are and who everybody else is. So my big plan is to keep on fighting for that. And I'm really not somebody that talks a lot about everything, but you need to know that I'm here. If anybody needs me, I'm always going to be around to reach a helping hand out. Thank you.
Thank you, Beryl.
Yeah.
Also, thank you, Franklin, to make Beryl's speech possible. Okay, so right now we have all 5 speakers voicing their insights. Before Svetlana is going to talk about the Senior Citizens Association, I would like to open up. Is there any questions for all speakers? Any questions for each other's insights? Beryl?
Do I have a question?
Okay.
My question is that I would like to say to all the panelists and all the different nationalities that are here, be it that you're from the Caribbean or from Africa or from Russia or from wherever else that we've all come from, that we're one people. And we need to reach a helping hand out to everyone. It might not say that you're giving money or whatever, but just being there, especially with the shut-ins right now with what is going on. And I wanted to say that I am hoping that we'll continue to do so.
Great. Okay, now I can mute. Very good. How about Franklin? Franklin, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm just impressed with this whole coming together in a new format of online, and of course with COVID-19 being very much present today, it's impressive to see something like this coming together and still being able to promote what matters to us a lot, our culture, in this challenging time. So yeah, I'm happy, and I'm happy to listen and share to everybody on the panel. Thank you.
Cecilia, may I ask the question? So Satya, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. And my question is, like, we all involved in multicultural activities in a variety of our communities, and we all try to represent our cultures more and to make it more familiar for people, that people wouldn't have any, you know, fears or misunderstanding about who we are and where we came from. But on the political level or on legislature level, do you think that community can somehow influence our political leaders in order to actually get some implementation of our wonderful ideas on a community level onto the level of like province and municipalities?
I actually think that's been happening for a while. In 1974, Alberta became the first jurisdiction in the world to introduce a Multiculturalism Act. That was my friend Horst Schmidt, who was the culture minister at the time. And since then, we've had cultural evolution in many different ways. One of the best examples is one of our co-panelists today, Jwamer, because he was, I think, a 5 or 6 year old boy when I met his parents, Jalal and Sabat Tahir, and did a profile of them in the Edmonton Journal as newly arrived refugees from what ought to have been Kurdistan, but was in fact occupied Iraq. And, you know, seeing him here today as a grown man, full of such wisdom and such insight, and he himself talking about Taoism and how that has taken him on a different path. This is the kind of cultural mingling I'm talking about. What our government has sort of done is it's given us the legislative framework with the Charter of Rights and with the various Multiculturalism Acts, and sort of left it to us to find one another, connect one another, and build one another. And for me, especially in the last 10 years, I've been melding my sense of Canadianness with Indigenous identity. So I think that it's never finished. It's an act of reconciliation and being and belonging that always broadens. I'm meeting a couple of people on this panel for the first time, but people like Beryl and Lan and I have worked together for 30, and Karen have worked together for 30 or 35 years or more in promoting cultural mingling, in promoting the sharing and the dignity. So I think that we haven't waited for the government to set the table, we've waited for the government to catch up to where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. So right now, I would like to get Swelana to talk about the Seniors Club.
So just probably want to start a little bit with introduction of our center. So we call Jewish Senior Citizen Center because we were originally formed by Jewish community of Edmonton, but we as a center which is open for everybody who wants to join us, and we have people from all over the world with a different ethnical background and religious beliefs, and we are based on a culture, not on a faith. So for us, it's a great pleasure to hear, you know, and that all of you involved in this work you are doing. And before, like, we did some project together with Len, with Beryl, and it was a great success, and we will continue our work. But also Satya mentioned his interest and involvement with indigenous community, and this year we did facilitated a project together with the indigenous community of Edmonton, which called From Survival to Thrival, Shared Historical Experiences. And it was very interesting project. We finished it for the particular moment, but we're definitely looking forward to create opportunity to continue explore our two cultures and see how we can move from the stage of survival to the stage of thrival. And the difference between our project and, for example, Truth and Reconciliation approach was that we were discussing and communicating on a very, very personal level. And we were not only kind of talking about the dark moments of our past, but we actually were focusing where we are now and how we can build a brighter and successful future for all of us in Canada, and how we can work together in order to support and help each other. So Satya, I will be happy to continue to connect and maybe invite you as a presenter for one of our sessions, because I'm sure that your insights will be very important for all of us. So thank you for sharing your story. And, you know, of course, unfortunately now we are officially closed as a premises, but we have a lot of different programs online, and we do fitness activities, we do a lot of intellectual stimulation. So please, if you will feel like to learn about us more, you can always go to our website. It's JDIC seniorcenters.ca, and we can just put it in the chat if you want to check us after the presentation. And please connect with us, because we always are happy to create projects together and support each other, and, you know, just be a part of our wonderful multicultural community in Edmonton.
Thanks, Svana. I believe all of us in this panel will agree that it's a thoroughly enjoyable session. And once more, thank you all of your thoughtful insights and for being here to share them. I'm sure the participants like myself have learned a lot from this session. Please listen in on Radio 1, 580 AM. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to
Thank
meet everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Keep that good job.
Thanks, and until we meet again.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.